Hi, my name is Isabella, and for my current issue, I'll be covering Women in Sports Formula One. Women's representation in Formula One, from drivers to engineers to principals and more, is very limited. The goal in Formula One has long struggled with gender imbalance in the workforce and on the track. These 5 women have entered the World Championship Grand Prix with only 2 qualifying and racing. These names are Lella Lombardi, Maria Teresa de Filippis, the only 2 to ever score points, Desire Wilson, Giovanni Amata, Davina Glacia, and more recently, Susie Wolff in practice sessions. Female representations remain rare, according to The Conversation 2024. Female One, or Formula One, continues to take serious steps as to launching Formula One Academy, boosting female staff representation, as well as grassroots outreach. However, even with the continued pressure to level the playing field between men and women in F1, there is an increased participation, and it remains a longer-term goal for the sport. Conversation 2024 focuses on a few deep-level diversities such as gender, socialization, social class, and lesser in age, but it is still relevant in the context of Formula One. I've highlighted a few of these here. Gender. Men and women's Formula One, two very different things. Women in Formula One are underrepresented, especially as drivers. Historically, only a few women have ever entered F1 Grand Prix, and those who have rarely raced or are few. Structural barriers have been established by social stereotypes, which has limited what roles women can have in F1, especially leadership positions and competitive roles like driving. There are a few glimmers of progress as a team principal, Manisha Cattleborn, and Claire Williams, a strategy engineer, Hanno Schmidt, and the F1 Academy director, Susie Wolff. These show movement, however limited. Socialization. A cultural norm for young girls has not encouraged them to pursue a career in F1. However, as long as Formula One has been in full force, it has remained a male-dominated sport. Young girls were not exposed to seeing successful female drivers, which affects their engagement in the sport as they don't aspire to have this dream. Shifting towards a more equitable representation is slowly happening. There are so many young girls who now want to get into karting, want to be a driver because they see themselves in these girls in F1 Academy. Social class. This one is a big one because it takes so much money and so much investment and time to be able to do karting and sign up for these races and do all these things. Most often it starts out with karting, like I said, at an early age of 4 to 5. You improve those skills, and upon improving those skills of racing and motorsport, the sponsorship is what is most critical. Male drivers often have a more direct career path to sponsorship, while women lack the similar financial support. Systematic exclusion created an economic barrier for women in F1. Example, the W Series that collapsed due to financial issues because they did not have the sponsorships, along with limited resources and exacerbating social inequality. Age, as mentioned, it's important, but it's not the biggest issue of F1. Success can come from any F1 driver, but it really depends on their early childhood and the early childhood karting that they experience. They learn the rules, the competition, the skills needed to grow in the motorsport or in motorsport. Oftentimes, female participants limit these long-term successes and long-term abilities to they just didn't grow up with karting, so it's hard for them to see this through. As youth engagement is critical for motorsport success, the sport is attempting to encourage more females to be represented on the track so young girls can see this and want to get into it. Grassroots supports for females at a young age would be a direct pipeline to success in supporting women to be drivers, principals, or engineers. So not just the drivers, but anything in F1. Social systems. Autosport Formula One 2024 highlights some significant barriers and challenges faced by women in the sport. Historically, social systems and structures have contributed to the human suffering and more recently, human flourishing in this sport. I'll touch on 3 topics: historical gender discrimination, economic barriers, and representation. Historical gender discrimination. At one point, F1 had positions limited to women that were peripheral roles, such as grid girls. I feel like we've all seen in the movies the girls at the end or the start of the race, and they're with their flag, and they go 3, 2, 1, and then the checkered flags are flown. Those are very sexualized roles, and it really just shows that women cannot succeed in a male-dominated sport. These now have been eliminated. Rather than recognizing their skills as potential drivers, engineers, principals, news reporters, they are just sexualized. This marginalization perpetuated the stereotypes about women's capabilities in these high-performance environments without allowing them to truly showcase their talents. They're only there for the male gaze. Economic barriers. Historically, with limited sponsorship and financial backing, these financial demands disproportionately affect women, which limits their progression in the sport. These costs continue to increase as they have advanced through junior racing to Formula 2 to racing Formula 2, Formula 3, which can have a budget of nearly 2 million euros per season and even more when you reach Formula 1. The representation. The absence of female role models has contributed to the cycle where young girls might be discouraged and want to pursue other careers because pursuing careers in motorsport often have limited visibility of female success. Without this visibility for young girls, Formula One women role models are at the highest level. It becomes more challenging to inspire the next generation of females to break into the sport because of the limited representation that they have. The evolution of human flourishing has begun with the initiative of launching F1 Academy in 2023. This platform has created a showcase where young female girls drive and show off their skills. By offering these opportunities, it acknowledges the value females have in motorsport career, and it is a great representation for young girls. The corporate sponsorships had a slight increase from investors such as Puma, DHL, which focus on female drivers and recognizes their potential in racing. The financial support is absolutely necessary to compete and challenge outdated perceptions about female and visibility in Formula One because historically they have only been grid girls, but now we're branching off in principals, engineers, what's the other one? And drivers as well. So I think this is really important. But the dissolving of grid girls in 2018, this acknowledged the movement away from objectifying women and progression towards respect and inclusion in the F1 space, typically male-dominated. This broader representation recognizes that women's contributions are beyond traditional roles. Social systems and structures on individual dignity have had a profound impact for women in their journey in F1. Recent initiates and culture shifts are slowly paving the way for more inclusion and respect. However, there are still historical barriers in the sport. Where was I? Recent initiates and cultural shifts are slowly paving the way for more inclusion and respect. However, there are still historical barriers that contribute to the marginalization. Challenging stereotypes and providing more equitable opportunities can elevate individuals, especially the women who want to participate in F1, without a hesitation and without the backlash from others. Do you agree or not agree? I do agree with BBC Sport 2024 as they suggest a few well-deserved kudos as well as a few areas of concern or continued attention. While looking at F1 kudos, Formula One has taken many concrete steps towards establishing a strong structure for young female development through F1 Academy. Susie Wolff, Toto Wolff's wife, needs much of the credit for this initiative to come to fruition as it provides experience, purpose, and mentorship for girls who envision themselves in motorsport, particularly Formula One. Financial support such as Discover Your Drive, who partner with F1 teams, are essential in reducing the structural and economic barriers that obviously come with this sport. When these partnerships are formed, it begins to shine light on the slight gatekeeper in motorsport, but directly taking the issue, both ethically and practically, bringing awareness through representation and cultural shifts, allow a female fan base and more support to come through for F1. A lot of the female fan base currently is for the men, but I think it's slowly shifting and we're seeing it for the women. And we just want to support everyone who drives and support all the teams because at the end of the day, that's what matters, is just supporting and coming out and showing up for them. The female demographic ages 18 through 24 is rapidly representing 40% of the audience, and it continues to grow and grow, diminishing the old stereotypes. Continued attention would be placed on the driver selection, and persistent gender bias in leadership remains persistent. In nearly 50 years, no woman has ever competed in the F1 race since Lila Lombardi in 1976, which might highlight institutional resistance. So instead of seeing women in regular Formula One, we created F1 Academy. Still great on its own, but I think it would be nice to see women in Formula One competing against the men and in the same cars as the men, to show that it's not just about the driver, it's about the car. Other way around. That it's about the driver and not just the car. The car enhances their skills, but the driver is what's most important for a race. Despite being highly capable, Susie Wolff did not have an opportunity for a full race, which reflects systematic failure to challenge default male standards. Delayed investment action until the 2020s was not necessary. Progress absolutely could have handled deadlines decades earlier. However, F1 denied opportunities to meaningful generations with powerful talent. Forward motion suggests that it would be ideal to integrate F1 Academy with mainstream series to ensure that young female athletes and drivers have the opportunities that the males have, and the men, and the higher progress teams and the higher financial teams and the higher back teams, they had the same support because that's what they deserve. They're doing just as much work to prove themselves in a sport where it is male dominated and it is so hard to move forward. Enforcing gender inclusive metrics similar to other industries will measure and resort on gender equality across drivers, principals, and engineers. For moral, ethical, social, and psychological reasons, moral and ethical reasons impact every day and every individual, as they deserve equal opportunity and respect regardless of their gender. F1 is working towards removing barriers and aligning with principles on fairness, human dignity, and justice. Whether rejection of discrimination and biases are upheld, these women's success is ensured. Social reasons impact gender diversity by bringing varied talents, ideas, and perspectives, which can lead to innovative performance. Inclusion promotes equality and positive female role models for society. For these little girls that want to become F1 drivers or karting drivers or just a driver in general, they see that they can do that with this representation. Representation matters when looking at psychological reasons. Like I said, when they're young, it starts when they're young. Women who are included and see in F1 empowers other girls and women to believe in their own potential, which in turn boosts their mental well-being, so they're not so discouraged and they know, if she can do it, I can do it too. It also motivates to compete in this environment. F1 2024. For personal reasons, I support the ongoing efforts with Formula One to elevate women and promote gender equality, because in this day and age, if we're not trying to uplift everyone, nobody's being uplifted, and that is scary. These efforts are ethically and morally right and socially beneficial to everyone. Honoring human dignity, investing in cultural change and visibility helps to become and make an inclusive sport. Why I chose this event. I chose the story of Susie Wolff and the F1 Academy because it highlights a competing, ongoing struggle for gender inequality in a very male-dominated sport. Male-dominated areas of global sports. Formula One racing. It is not just about the racing, it is about the access, systematic barriers, recognition, and how identity can either open or close doors in elite sports depending on your ability, and regardless of your ability, honestly. The story is deeply human. It shows the dreams of young women striving to compete on the world's biggest stage, only to find their abilities are continually questioned, not because of her skills or her money or anything, simply because of her gender. Yet it also tells a wonderful story of resilience, leadership, and a hope for change in the new world. Because through continued efforts of people like Susie and the advocacy and mentorship she extends to the next generation of female drivers, it creates inclusion and it creates support and hope that women and girls who are younger than me or hell even my age, they can still be successful, and if they want to start karting and kart until they're 13, 14, and then try and get to F1 Academy, that is wonderful, and that is the support that we need for watching and listening to my presentation on Formula One Academy, the rise and fall of women drivers and in the sport, and what it takes to be a woman in such an elite sport. I hope you enjoyed. See ya!